Well, welcome to the Cinnabar. Today we've got a really special episode for you Colt Lightning fans. You see, today we're going to be shooting the granddaddy of them all, the 5095 Express large frame Lightning. Now this one come into the shop needing to be evaluated and test fired because, well, somebody's got to do that kind of work, and it might just as well be me. So I went through it all. Actually, it's in excellent mechanical condition, and the problem I had then is trying to find ammo for it. Boy, if you've looked around for 5095 ammo, it's pretty scarce these days. So wife and I were down at a gun show down in Las Vegas here 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I scoured that show. It is a big show, and heck, I couldn't come up with even a sniff of it. And about the third day, the fellow was set up in a table right across the aisle from us, come wandering over and asked if we had any need for some 5095 ammunition. Well, I just about jumped over the table and hugged him. He said he had 3 boxes that he didn't need. He got in a trade with some other ammo that he did want, and so if we needed it, we sure make a deal on it. And so we made a deal right fast on that, and so we brought it home, and we've worked up a little bit of a couple of loads for it, and we brought up the chrony, so we're gonna have a little bit of fun. We may even shoot some ballistic gelatin just for the heck of it as well. So stick around, we'll shoot this old 5095 and just see how she does. Here's a close look at this Express Lightning. You can see it's really a nice condition gun. You know, if it has one issue, it's that there's just a fine layer of patina or oxidation on it, like it was in a fairly humid environment at some point in its life, but there's very, very little bluing loss, just that patina, that layer on top of it. The bore on this thing is just exceptional. It's just going to be a fantastic shooter, I'm sure. I'm really looking forward to putting a few rounds through her. Now, I'm always really cautious about the kind of ammo I shoot in these black powder era firearms, especially if they're not mine. So when I got this 10X ammo, I did a little bit of research, and they're not producing this anymore, but when they did, they made a smokeless powder version that was deemed safe for the early firearms, and a black powder version as well. And this is the smokeless powder version. But to err on the side of caution, I went ahead and pulled one of the bullets and dumped the powder and found there was 35 grains of smokeless powder in here. So I went ahead and dumped 3 of those grains and just put 32 back in. So I read somewhere where somebody had shot some of these over a chrony, and they were about 1150 feet per second, which is pretty mild. So at 32 grains, you know, we would expect something around 1,000 feet per second. Real mild, safe load to shoot. And just for fun, I decided to go ahead and load up some 2F black powder. And of course, we can fill that case right up and push the velocity up higher, because we don't get the kind of pressures that we get with black powder out of the smokeless powder. But then that created another problem. After I pulled these, I didn't have a set of 5095 dies, and I couldn't find any anywhere. So went ahead out in the shop, and we made our own kind of prototype Cinnabar bullet seating and crimp die here. So tested it out, and while I don't like to brag, I'm really happy about the way the crimp turned out on this. So let's run up on the hill and see how they shoot now. Okay, so first up we'll shoot this smokeless load that we took a few grains out of just to be on the safe side. Okay, we'll tip it up a little, just make sure that powder isn't strung out down there. Okay, we'll see what this one will do to that ballistic gelatin. Well, 1,300 feet per second. So what I had read about 1,150 was a little bit excessive. If we dropped 3 grains out of it and it was 1,300 feet. So I'm glad we did that to have a little bit of a safety margin. Now we can see that bullet hit just about dead centered, maybe just a little right of dead center, and it traveled all the way through this ballistic gelatin. And as it exited the back, it deflected, came right down and tagged my board and just split it right in half. So that ballistic gelatin didn't slow that 350 grain bullet down all that much. That's pretty impressive. Apparently it didn't mushroom a whole bunch. It must be fairly hard lead they were using in those 10X bullets. Okay, so let's take a look at the brass. We don't see any signs of overpressure. Actually, that 1300 feet per second I think is probably a pretty darn good load for this gun. We may just go back before we shoot any more of these and dump about 3 grains out of all of them. But before we do that, let's try this black powder load. I suspect that we're going to get quite a little more horsepower out of this black powder, maybe up around the 1500 foot range. Probably set a guy back just a little bit further too. Oh, better put my glasses on. Wow, that was impressive. We'll let the smoke clear and go check that out. Well, it's pretty obvious I'm going to have to do a little more carpentry and have something a little more stable for these 5095 loads, I can tell you that. Again, this one just went right on through it. Now at 1455 feet per second, that black powder load was just about right. And this load of 10X at 35 grains, you know, it's just pushing things a little more than I'd like to. It's probably fine, but there's no reason to push it in these old guns. It's not like we're out trying to shoot elephants. So I'm going to give that new Cinnabar seat and crimp die a workout tonight. We'll dump these cartridges and fill it back up with black powder, and then we'll be right back up here tomorrow and see if we can't lay waste to a few milk jugs. Okay, now we got 10 rounds dumped. We'll get them loaded right back up with black powder. Now we've got our black powder cartridges loaded, but one of the things I noticed when we were test firing this large frame yesterday was that it wasn't ejecting the brass properly. It was just kind of flipping them up and right back down into the receiver. It would, when we cycled a loaded cartridge through it, it would spit a loaded cartridge out. It just, that extractor just wasn't holding that empty case up for the ejector bars to hit it and knock it out of there very well. It was just kind of falling out. So I tried to manipulate it a little bit, adjust it a little bit, but it was still not working. So we're going to have to put in another extractor. Unfortunately, I had a spare large frame extractor here, so we'll do a kind of a mini takedown episode here on a large frame Colt Lightning. Now, we won't have to take it all the way down, but in order to get to that extractor, we're going to have to get the bolt out, and we're going to have to take the gun down quite a ways to get there. I promise at some point in the future we'll do a full takedown and reassembly video on one of these Colt Lightnings, because they're a fascinating piece of engineering. Okay, so first off we'll take off this dust cover. Now these large frames all had dust covers. The medium frames, the earlier ones, were an open top variety and didn't have the dust cover, but all the large frames have the dust cover. They came out a little later than the medium frames, and we'll just slide this dust cover back off. Okay, then we'll drop the hammer back down. We'll take the grips off. Because in order to take this down the way we want to, we really have to take the mag tube out, and it's a lot healthier for these grips if the mag tube's off. These grips are in excellent shape, and so many of the grips on these Lightnings are cracked or broken, so we don't want to take any chances of cracking or breaking these grips. They're extremely difficult to replace. Not many good ones ever come up for sale. And they're not fun to reproduce either. It can be done, and I've seen some pretty good ones done, but there's nothing like the originals. Okay, and they come right off almost universally. They don't stick very hard. Okay, so next thing we want to do is we're going to have to get this magazine tube out, and for that we'll take this. Oh, we've got to get a different screwdriver. We'll take this magazine plug screw out and keep our finger over the end of the plug so that it doesn't go flying out of there. I take the screw out, and then the tube should just slide out. And then what I like to do is then put that screw right back in the plug, and that keeps the spring from shooting that plug out across the room. Okay, so now we're getting there. We've got that mag tube out. Things come apart pretty easily on these at the beginning of this whole process. We're going to go ahead now and get the buttstock off. It's nice when you've got a gun that hasn't been abused like this one. This one has all good screw heads. It's not all gummed up and gunked up. I don't think this gun's been used a whole lot. Okay, let's see how easily that buttstock will come off now. Beautiful. Great stock. Okay, now we've got, real similar to the 1873s, we've got a screw on each side of the receiver that holds the lower tang in place. We'll go ahead and scoot this out of the way here. Save our parts that we have sitting on top of it. Okay, so now we're going to switch screwdrivers again. Be really careful with these. These are kind of shallow, and they're easy to bugger up the heads if you're not careful, especially if they come out hard. These are coming out really easy. Everything is on this gun. This gun's in fabulous shape, really, other than just a thin layer of patina over the top of the bluing. Okay, we're just about to the point where it comes into two big pieces. So we want to work the slide back about halfway, and then there's two lugs right up here on the front of the receiver, and we're going to try to move those forward, and then the whole lower tang assembly can come out. And sometimes it's kind of a bugger to get moving if it hasn't for a long time, and I bet this gun hasn't been apart in the past. I'm going to get a rubber mallet and help it along a little. There she goes. We're seeing them starting to separate a little bit. Once those lugs get out in front of that recess, then we can pull up on it a little bit and start working it out of there. This one's really tight because it just hasn't been apart much, I don't think. Okay, here we go. Just about there. Boy, it's really tight. Here we go. Alright, so there's our whole lower tang assembly. And that'll be a story for another day, dismantling all the rest of that. But for today, we're just really want to get this bolt out of here. So we've got to move this bolt back to the back here, and then you see there's a little access hole here and a hole on this side, and that is to get the pin out of the locking lugs that's a little too big, that are pinned to the bolt, and we can just push that out with our fingers. It's not held in real tight. And here are the locking lugs. Now these are These are real positive. I hear people talk about that Colt Lightnings are weak and whatnot, but when those lugs are in place, a Colt Lightning is locked up really well. And now we can just slide the bolt out of it. Now I'll play around with this extractor a little bit and put the other one back in, and we'll put her back together and see if she'll eject a spent cartridge now. Okay, so we've got this old Lightning put back together, and we haven't got the dust cover back on, but at least it's time to test it out and see if this extractor is going to do the job and we can eject this empty shell. I think we're good to go. Okay, so it's time to thoroughly function test this Express Lightning. You know, you never know when a guy out in this country gets faced with a band of horse thieving desperados, so let's see how she might perform if that ever was to happen. We'll start right up here close. Okay, so she looks like she's going to do all right. Let's try one of those up on the stand. Let's shoot some steel. Okay, let's load up some more. What a great gun to shoot. A lot of fun. A little stiff to load. Okay, let's see, we got some more milk jugs. Let's see about that one way up there on the hill. Oh, just over the top. Again, right in the same spot. She's consistent. There we go. Okay, well, how about a little more steel? Oh, what great fun. Love all the smoke flying, red mist flying, banging off the steel. What great fun. Just a spectacular old Colt Lightning rifle. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and rest assured, I enjoyed it enough for the both of us. I'd like to thank my good friend Frank Walker for the loan of this 50 Express Lightning. It's just a dandy rifle, and what a joy to shoot. Thanks again for joining us on this beautiful midwinter's day, and until next time, happy trails from the Cinnabar.